everyone, and welcome back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe retrospective, taking a look at each film in the MCU and seeing how well they hold up. Last time we saw the second chapter of Marvel's crossover team with Avengers Age of Ultron, a hidden gem of Phase 2. Today we look at the finale of Phase 2 and the introduction of a new hero with Ant-Man. Before the MCU, the insect-sized human played a much more significant role in the comics. The first character to go microscopic, Hank Pym, was created by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Larry Lieber and first appeared in Tales to Astonish number 27 in 1962. He later donned the name of Ant-Man in issue 35. Scott Lang, the film's central character, was created by Dave Michelin, Bob Layton, and John Byrne, and first appeared in the Avengers 181 in 1979. He then succeeded Hank as Ant-Man in Marvel Premiere number 47. The hero was one of the founding members of the Avengers and has a vast history in the comics. A film adaptation began in the 90s, with Stan Lee pitching the concept to New World Pictures. Unfortunately, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids came out around the same time, so the idea didn't feel as original. The rights were passed around to some studios and people, including Howard Stern of all things, but in 2003, Edgar Wright and his writing partner Joe Cornish pitched a script to Artisan, who held the rights at the time. But nothing came of it until the rights returned to Marvel. They then re-pitched it to Kevin Feige, who greenlit the project and began development in 2006. The film was officially announced in 2013 and was initially slated to start Phase 3 before being bumped up to the end of Phase 2. The film was said to be a heist movie, taking inspiration from classics like Ocean 11. Everything seemed to be ramping up. However, as pre-production began, Wright left the project, citing creative differences with Marvel. He wanted the film to be more standalone, while Marvel wanted to continue the established connections with the larger MCU. Peyton Reed was chosen to helm the film after going through potential replacements, including Ruben Fleischer, who later directed Venom. Reed had been well known for his comedies like Bring It On and The Breakup. While Wright and Cornish's original story was still used, Adam McKay and Paul Rudd provided rewrites during filming. One of the significant factors Marvel wanted to make when doing the film was to have a much more light-hearted comedic tone, especially after Age of Ultron. The film premiered just a couple months after Age of Ultron, and while it didn't make quite as much as other MCU entries, it was considered a sizable success, enough for a sequel at least. The reception was generally positive, but Ant-Man hasn't really been seen as anyone's favorite hero or movie. However, given the significant implications the character has with the MCU's future, maybe there's more than most think. Let's take a deeper look and see. The film opens with a flashback in 1989, where scientist Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, confronts S.H.I.E.L.D. heads Howard Stark, Peggy Carter, and Mitchell Carson, played by Martin Donovan, about replicating his formula, the Pym particle. Since this is a flashback from 25 years ago, Douglas and Donovan were de-aged with CG to match their look at the time. We've seen Marvel attempt this before in the X-Men films, with arguably mixed results. In fact, Atwell was aged to look older in Winter Soldier with the help of CG, which was done here as well. I'm mentioning this because even though we only see this done in the opening scene, it still looks remarkable. The work on Douglas especially is astounding. They perfectly captured his look in the 80s without dipping too far into the uncanny valley. It's even better knowing how Marvel would later utilize this in future installments and for a significantly larger portion of the film's runtime. Anyway, Hank resigns from S.H.I.E.L.D. and vows to protect the secret of the Pym particle with his life. As he leaves, Mitchell wants to go to war with Hank, but Howard advises against it, as he knows Hank will not threaten S.H.I.E.L.D. They resolve to simply leave him alone. We cut to the present, where we meet Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, getting released from prison. Scott was arrested and convicted for hacking a big tech company, stealing millions from their customers, and he returned the money to them. Despite his noble intentions, the media painted him as a crook, and his reputation was ruined. This makes it difficult for him to hold down a job, even getting fired from Baskin-Robbins. His friend and former cellmate Luis, played by Michael Pena, introduces him to colleagues Kurt, played by David Dastmalchian, and Dave, played by Tip T.I. Harris. Yeah, Harris is probably the only thing from both Ant-Man films that hasn't aged well. Thankfully, he isn't a huge character and doesn't affect the overall plot. Luis tries to get Scott back into the thieving world with a tip on a supposedly good score, but Scott refuses as he's trying to stay clean for the sake of his daughter Cassie, played by Abby Ryder-Forston. Despite this, his ex-wife Maggie, played by Judy Greer, and her fiancé Officer Paxton, played by Bobby Cannavale, won't allow him to see her until he can pay off child support. Realizing he has no faster alternative, he decides to follow Luis's tip. Meanwhile, a much older Hank visits his company Pimtech, of which he was former CEO. His successor and protege, Darren Cross, played by Corey Stoll, invited Hank to the unveiling of his latest invention, the Yellow Jacket. Apparently, Darren was inspired, or rather driven, by the rumored stories of Hank working as a soldier for S.H.I.E.L.D. using the Pym particle. He reveals that he created his own formula, allowing him to shrink objects, and plans to mass-produce an army of Yellow Jacket suits. Hank realizes his worst fear has come true. His daughter and board chairman, Hope Van Dyne, played by Evangeline Lilly, secretly confers with Hank on how to proceed. She's been working as a double agent after discovering what Darren has been doing and is helping Hank to stop him. Hank says he's found a guy that they can use. Scott learns about the tip from Luis in one of the funniest moments of the movie, where Luis dumps out exposition with a story that can get a little convoluted, but is a treat to watch. It basically boils down to an old man that has a safe and is going out of town for a week. From here, we get a montage of the team preparing for the heist and see why Scott is good at what he does. The night comes and they begin the job. Scott breaks in easily and finds some clever tricks around a fingerprint lock and a steel safe. Unfortunately, his only reward is what appears to be a motorcycle suit. He takes it home and puts it on. He fiddles around with some buttons and suddenly finds himself shrunken to the size of an inch. The effects here are some of Marvel's best. The big to small ratio feels seamless and creates an incredible scale on screen. Hank speaks to Scott through the helmet as he experiences the struggles of being tiny, leading to a cameo from Garrett Morris, who played Ant-Man on an SNL sketch from the 70s. Understandably freaked out, Scott returns the suit only to get arrested. Hank visits him under the guise of being his lawyer, and he offers Scott another chance and tells him to wait in his cell for further instructions. Meanwhile, the film takes time to show just how evil Darren is with cruelty to animals. A group of ants appear in Scott's cell and give him the suit. He puts it on and escapes with their help. As the police search for him, he flies on a carpenter ant but passes out on a high altitude. He wakes up the next day in Hank's house with a stern Hope watching him. He meets with Hank, who explains that he's been watching him since he hacked the company that put him in jail. He gives Scott an exposition dump on why he's here. After Hank left S.H.I.E.L.D., he established Pimtech to continue his research. During that time, he took on Darren as his apprentice. Darren got too close, asking questions about the Pym particle and his work with S.H.I.E.L.D. Hank pushed him away, and as a result, Darren convinced the company board, including Hope, to vote Hank out. Hope came to Hank when she realized how far Darren was willing to go to achieve what Hank did in the past, and they began planning to stop him. Hank chose Scott because he believes everyone deserves a second chance, and says that if he can help him steal the Yellow Jacket, he can help Scott see Cassie again. Hope is against using Scott and wants to wear the suit herself, but Hank refuses to let her. He also explains that he can't use the suit since the chemicals from the Pym particles had a side effect that wore his body down over time. Scott agrees to help, seeing his only chance to redeem himself. From here, we get a training montage with Scott attempting to use the suit's powers, fight effectively, and cooperate with the ants, but proceeds to fail miserably. In one exercise, where he uses a device to mentally communicate with the ants, Hope gets frustrated and uses it herself. She leaves the house upset with Hank. Scott goes to have a heart-to-heart with her. He knows that the reason he's here is that he's expendable. If something happens to him, Hank can cope. If something happens to Hope, he couldn't bear it. Hope helps Scott by telling him to concentrate on Cassie when controlling the ants. When they return to Hank, he finally tells Hope what happened with their mother Janet, a point of contention between the two for the longest time. Janet worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. alongside Hank as the Wasp, even having her own suit with wings. In 1987, Hank and Janet were tasked with disabling a nuclear missile. Hank tried to shrink between the molecules of the missile, which would make him go subatomic and shrink for eternity in the quantum realm, but his regulator was damaged. Janet made the sacrifice instead and disabled the missile. Hank spent the next decade learning about the quantum realm to find some way of bringing her back, but in the process, pushed hope away. Now the two finally reconcile. That is, until Scott ruins the moment with his comedic timing. He continues to train and is given a final test to prove his worth. Hank tasks him with retrieving a MacGuffin device from an abandoned Stark storage. The only problem is that it's now been made to the new Avengers base. Despite this, Scott still makes it to the device after a fight with Falcon. This is my one major criticism of the film. Not so much this scene, but rather that the movie itself feels it needs to heavily rely on the rest of the MCU. Phase 1 stories use references and characters from other films, but that was part of the build-up. Every subsequent use up to here felt natural and blended with the story. This feels desperate. You could cut out Falcon from the movie and not miss a thing. Regardless, Scott retrieves the device and leaves. Darren unexpectedly appears at Hank's house and invites him to the official unveiling of the Yellow Jacket. He also increases security, throwing a wrench in their plans. Scott suggests using his crew to help, and Hank reluctantly agrees. They prepare and commence operation at Pimtech. Hope helps Louise infiltrate security, and Kurt and Dave help Scott enter through the water main. He uses the ants to disable the security system and closes in on the Yellow Jacket. However, Darren captures him as he confronts Hank and Hope, revealing he knew their plan all along. He goes to shoot Hank, but Scott manages to escape and fight off the guards. Darren still shoots Hank and escapes with the Yellow Jacket as Scott chases after him. Hope, Hank, and the others escape the building as the ants detonate a bomb, causing it to implode and destroying all technology on their work. Scott follows Darren on a helicopter where he shoots down his flying partner, Anthony. Darren then dons the Yellow Jacket suit and fights Scott off the helicopter down a backyard, where Scott is captured by Paxton. Darren goes after Cassie to lure him back. The two fight in her bedroom in the film's climax. Let me just take this moment to remind everyone that this epic clash includes Thomas the Tank Engine. Scott realizes he has to shrink between the molecules of the Yellow Jacket to destroy it. He says goodbye to Cassie and turns off his regulator. He disables the suit, causing Darren to implode on himself. Scott continues to shrink within the quantum realm. This is the first time we see it in the MCU, and I love the abstract imagery used here. Scott remembers he has a growing disc, a weapon that could enlarge anything, and uses it to fix his regulator. A deus ex machina, sure, but an earned one. Scott returns to the main dimension and reunites with Cassie. However, he has no memory of the quantum realm itself. Hank believes this may be because it's too vast for the human mind to comprehend. Still, he does see this as a possibility to bring Janet back. Scott and Hope also kiss, which comes out of nowhere, though they admit that in the movie. Paxton helps Scott with his arrest, and he begins a new relationship with his daughter and their family. The film ends with Scott getting a call from Louise, who says the Falcon is looking for him through another exposition dump with a Stan Lee cameo. In the mid-credits scene, Hank reveals to Hope that he and Janet were working on a new prototype Wasp suit before her disappearance. He decides it's time for her to finally join the team, setting up the sequel. The post-credits scene is taken directly from Captain America: Civil War, where Scott's presence is teased. Both do a good job of building up anticipation for the next chapter. With that, Ant-Man's little adventure is done. Like with Winter Soldier, my thoughts haven't really changed on this film. It's still a fun distraction in the Infinity Saga. Aside from the aggressive Avengers connections, this is a superhero film that everyone can enjoy. With Phase 2 complete, it was time for Marvel to unveil Phase 3 and begin the closing chapters of the Infinity Saga. Join me next time when we look at Captain America: Civil War and see if it still makes a substantial dent in the MCU as it did. Until then, if you want to keep up with my videos, then be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and check out my VODs on my other channel. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and share it with friends. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.